So once you took your shahada, you went back in your story. You said that, Allah planted seeds. And some of those seeds were like you revering the late and great Malcolm X.
So we didn't even know how to be a Muslim. We thought being a Muslim meant being like Malcolm X. Dr. Qadi said something. He said that after 9/11, Muslims in America and around the world were in so much danger.
This is my first ever interview. Actually, it's also my first interview with someone who had less followers than me. So
Yes, zero.
I see two Arab brothers. They talk for too long. I just raise my hands. I don't know. I don't know what they're talking.
Never before in the history of the world have more people heard people asking for help than we've heard Palestinians. Do any of you know the plan for us to stop the genocide in Gaza?
Roll Back Home is hands down one of my favorite podcasts.
Islamic reminders and comedy? How does that work?
Dude, 1 minute I'm laughing, the next minute I'm rethinking my whole relationship with Allah.
I usually only listen to lectures, but this is a nice way to relax.
It feels like you're just chilling with your friends and reflecting on the deen.
You actually learn a lot too. It's way more than just jokes.
10 out of 10 would recommend.
In partnership with Muslimi.
So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah wahda wa salatu wassalamu ala man la nabiyya ba'da. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us and keep us sincere. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to constantly love one another for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Ameen.
And allow us to use each other as a means of getting closer to Him. Brother Shaun, how you doing?
Good, man. Assalamu alaikum. Good to see you. Good to see you both.
Allah.
Yeah, this is my first ever interview.
Good.
Actually, it's also my first interview with someone who had less followers than me. So,
yes, zero.
Yeah. So if at any point you want to ask me questions, feel free. I'm fair game. And I did some homework on you, brother.
Yeah.
And I know once you took your shahada, you went back in your story. You said that Allah planted seeds.
Yeah.
And some of those seeds were like you revering the late and great Malcolm X.
Of course.
I'm curious, because most people that I've met that have some sort of, I don't say reverence, because a lot of people who are not Muslim have reverence for them too. They look up to him or felt changed by him because they felt some sort of racial prejudice in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious is it because of the city you lived in, or is it people that you've seen be abused? Were you personally racially profiled?
That's a great question, and I'm always excited to speak about Brother Malcolm. And I'm 46 years old, and when I first heard of Malcolm X, I was maybe 12 years old or so. Mm-hmm. And in the town that I grew up in, when the movie X came out, the closest thing that I could compare it to, I don't even know if both of you were born yet. The closest thing I could compare it to for African Americans is when Black Panther came out. And when it came out, families were taking their children, groups were taking entire groups of children. And when X came out, leaders were taking young children, particularly young Black boys, to go see it. And for us at the time, I was probably 12 years old. I hardly had ever even heard of Brother Malcolm. This is before YouTube. This is before the internet. And so at that point, everything I knew about him came from the movie. And that's good and bad. But the movie was, now I look back on it as a Muslim, the movie and his book were not written by Muslims. And the movie was not directed by a Muslim. But after watching the movie, I just saw someone who was strong and fearless. And I grew up in a small racist town in Kentucky where we were always dealing with racists. And we saw a man that, whether this was fully true or not, we saw a man that seemed to not be afraid of them. Mm-hmm. And his father was killed by racists. His entire life was shaped by racism. And so for all of us in the early 90s, it was relatable. And in the early 90s, he was not seen so much as an ancient figure. He was seen as you would see someone in the late 80s today. Him to me then would be like someone from the 80s to you today. And so, this was 30 years ago, and it was 30 years closer to him being alive. So he seemed still very real to us. And on March the 8th of 1995, I got beaten so badly by a group of racist students at my high school that I missed 2 years of high school recovering from the injuries. I missed the rest of my sophomore year and all of my junior year of high school. And I had 3 spinal surgeries. I had fractures in my face and ribs. And while I was recovering, one of my best friends brought me, he knew how much I loved the movie X. He brought me the book, The Autobiography of Malcolm X. And I was in my bed. I was in my bed for almost a year.
Whoa.
And I read the book 3 times. And after many of us read it at the time, Brother Malcolm, I don't know if there's right now, today, like Salahuddin is kind of viral right now. Like everywhere I go, people are talking about Salahuddin. He was alive 1,000 years ago, and we're talking about him now. Well, Brother Malcolm was super viral. Everyone had hats, shirts, shoes, coats, and we all wanted to be like him, so we shaped our mannerisms after him. And me and a young brother named Calvin got the idea. Now, you have to think, there's no Google, there's no YouTube, that we wanted to be like him so much that we thought the smartest way we could be like him was to be a Muslim. And so we decided. And as I think back on this now as a Muslim, I don't know the plans of Allah for me during that time, but we first visited a masjid in 1996, and I called. So we didn't even know how to be a Muslim. We thought being a Muslim meant being like Malcolm X. He was the only Muslim we knew. I went back and looked at my high school yearbook. There were 0 Muslims in my high school. There was not a single masjid in my hometown, this town we lived in. And there's no Google. So it's like, what do you do when you want to be a Muslim? So we looked in the phone book, and I don't know if you're old enough to know what a phone book is. Like, we looked in phone books trying to find out.
Not for utility. We got hit with it.
It was a weapon.
Yeah, it was a weapon at that point.
No, it was a deadly. If you got hit with a phone book, you might kill somebody, or at least you may have brain damage and just don't know it.
I deal with them every day. Definitely got.
Okay.
Listen, we didn't know what to look up. I kid you not. Like, back in the day, every single person's phone number was in the phone book. You had to pay to get your number out of the phone book.
Wow. Data brokers back then was crazy.
Oh, it was a whole nother ballgame. Like, I'm talking about like 100,000 phone numbers, and they're all listed in alphabetical order. Well, we couldn't find anything that had anything to do with Malcolm X. In the church section of the phone book was a masjid called Masjid Bilal in Lexington, Kentucky. And this was a group of brothers that used to be in the Nation of Islam that started this masjid, and it was just a house. And this again is 1995, 1996. So most of the large masjids in America didn't even exist yet. And he told me the smartest thing, man. He might as well have offered me $1 million. He said, young brother, he said, if you come up to the masjid on Friday for prayer, I'll write you an excuse and you won't have to go to school. I hated school, man. I mean, he might as well have offered me like a new Nintendo, like telling me that I wouldn't have to go to school. Even on the phone with him, I was like, do you mean I don't have to go to school all day? And he was like, just come up here. I'll write you an excuse.
This is for anyone that's in the Dawah scene watching this. Dawah 101.
Oh,
you gotta start taking this to the high school.
He hooked me. And for 3 straight Fridays, we drove all the way. It's almost 35 minutes away. We drove up to this house,
Yeah.
and it was like 10 Muslims and these 2 teenage boys, and we were so dumb. We were looking for Malcolm X, like not literally, but we were listening for Malcolm and we were just like, these Muslims aren't like Malcolm X. we were looking for the Malcolm X Muslims.
Yeah,
It's all we knew. Now, what we didn't know was these were the Malcolm X Muslims. They came from him. We didn't know what it meant to be a Sunni Muslim. We didn't know what it meant to take your Shahada. When they prayed, we didn't understand them. And being the mischievous boys we were, we realized that the school was no longer checking the note. And so this was my idea. It's my fault. I literally may have to answer to Allah for this. I told Calvin, I was like, man, I think we can just stay home and play video games.
The life.
I missed like 40 straight Fridays of school playing video games, man. And the most beautiful ending to that story, 2 years ago, I still have family in Kentucky, and my 17-year-old niece, she saw my wife and I take our Shahada. She decided she wanted to be a Muslim, and we knew she had to be a part of a masjid. She lives with us now, but at the time she was in Kentucky. And so I looked up Masjid Bilal, and the former imam, his name is Imam Shahid. He is retired, but he's still there. And we went to the masjid for Jummah one Friday. This is like a year and a half ago now. And his son recognized me, and his son brought I asked his son, I said, is your father still alive? And he's like, my father's like right over in the corner. One, he looked just like himself, and he brought his father over, and his father told me, he said, my son showed me a video, and he said, my son said, Dad, there's a famous man from Kentucky that became a Muslim. And I said, do you remember me? And he said, no. He was very earnest and sincere. And I said, almost 28 years ago, I called the masjid and you invited me to come up for prayer. And then I had remembered, I said, I even went to the YMCA and worked out with you one time. And he melted. Like you could see he remembered right away. And he said, I cannot believe that the man who was on the video that my son said, this famous man from Kentucky became a Muslim, Dad. He said, I can't believe that's the boy I invited to the masjid. And so, all the way back then, like this is true of millions of not just African Americans, but Muslims around the world and non-Muslims. Brother Malcolm was, for all of us, our first introduction to Islam. And we revered him first. And because of that, it softened our heart to a religion that we didn't know. We knew no Muslims, but we knew this man was strong and beautiful and that he loved us. And from that point forward, I always had a soft spot in my heart. And I even as at that time, hip hop, a lot of rappers were becoming Muslims. And I even wore a kufi. Like this is in high school. And
is that okay? Is that why you got beat up? Because you was wearing a kufi?
No. This was after I got beat up. Before I got beat up in March of 1995. I didn't read the autobiography of Malcolm X until a whole year later. And so we grew up in a town that was just overtly racist.
Okay.
And
did they? I'm sure you get this a lot.
No, talk to me.
Your white passing. How they know?
Yes and no. Yes and no. In the words and definitions that we use in 2026 are not the words that we used when I was assaulted 31 years ago.
Gotcha.
And 31 years ago, there was no phrase white passing. 31 years ago, we didn't even really have the phrases multiracial, biracial. I grew up in a town, I wrote a book called Make Change. And in my first chapter of the book, I tell the story, I tell their names and everything, of 3 black men that were lynched in the town I grew up. I grew up in a town with 10,000 people. In this little bitty town, 3 black men were lynched. In the town I grew up in, if you were a little black, it's ridiculous to even use these kinds of phrases. But in America, there was something called the 1-drop rule.
Yeah.
And what the rule basically was is if you were this black, you were black. So growing up in this town, I didn't even know much about my father, his story. My mother is a sweet white woman who worked in a factory there in the town, talked to me very little about race and racism. And so it wasn't until I was in 3rd and 4th grade that I started understanding not just what race I was, but even what race itself was. And so from my early childhood on, I was raised and thought of and treated as not mixed. That wasn't even really a way we knew to think of ourselves. As stupid as it sounds now, in the late 80s and early 90s, I was just seen as black.
Okay.
So, for instance, I'm friends with, I was very close with Salah in Gaza, and his brother Naji, his brother Naji was in jail until the day after Salah was killed.
That was a heart-wrenching.
So I was on Naji doesn't speak English and I don't speak Arabic. And so we're on a group chat and we send translated messages to each other. There's someone else there that helps us. And someone was trying to explain to Naji, who was born and raised in Gaza and has never left the bounds of Gaza. Someone was trying to explain to this man that I am black. And Naji was like, hold on. What do you mean? Like, I'm in the chat with him.
Yeah.
He's like, no. Like, Naji literally asked, like, are you playing a joke on me? And the brother, as a matter of fact, it was Mansour Schumann who was Palestinian, was trying to translate for Naji how me looking like this could be considered black. Now, in Gaza, there are, we call them Afro-Palestinians. They're just Palestinians.
Sure.
So he understands what black means.
Yeah.
But race in America is so ridiculous that even a smart man in 2026 around the world is confused by it. And is like, what do you mean he's black?
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah, because when you said, not to make light of the situation, but like...
Oh, listen...
when I hear like people abused you or assaulted you, I should say, because you're black, I'm like, somebody must have told him. Because for me, it was a double look, double take.
In the town, I sat at the black table for lunch.
Okay.
So, I mean, in elementary school, there's actually a book by a woman named Dr. Beverly Tatum called "Why Do All of the Black Kids Sit Together?" And we weren't assigned to a black table. Like, there was not an official black table. Again, I went to school in the 80s. Just 1985 is 20 years after the March on Washington. Like, I grew up at a time that's not super far away from segregation, but in elementary school, middle school, and high school, with the exception of 1 or 2 kids, all black kids sat together. So I sat at that table. And now there were other kids everyone wasn't dark black, brown. There was a variety of and I wasn't treated at that table as a guest, as a visitor, or even as different from everyone else. Like, we just all understood when we got to that school, the table already existed. And we just kind of conditionally knew this is where we go. I wasn't a Muslim, so I had girlfriends. I only dated black girls. All of my friends were black. Like, I went to an all-black college. I went to a black church. Like everything about, I'm talking about from the age of 10. And so it was not until, I was born in 1979. It was not until Eric Garner and Michael Brown were killed in the United States that a tiny group of white supremacists started saying I was white. I was 35 years old when my wife who was an African American and grew up with me, she and I've been together since we were 15 years old. When we started seeing people say I was white, we were like, I'm a 35-year-old man at that point.
Is why did your wife start questioning you?
Well, no.
Yeah,
Our thought was it was going to last a day. Like
It was like
it was so to us it was so stupid.
So ridiculous.
That, like, again, you're talking about someone. I just told you I revered Brother Malcolm so much I almost became a Muslim. That I was assaulted by a group of racist white students so badly that I wasn't just assaulted by them. And there were, alhamdulillah, there were people who experienced all of this with me. This wasn't like something that I only saw and I only experienced. The young brothers who experienced this, I'm still friends with them to this day.
Okay.
In 1993, I was in high school. My school was so racist that white students were allowed to chew chewing tobacco in school, and they would spit the spit in jars in class. I'm in the hallway one day in school, and a white student throws an entire jar of tobacco spit right in my face.
Wow.
Brother.
Wow.
I'm 14 years old.
Crazy.
I probably weighed 110 pounds, and I could walk home to my house. It was like a 20-minute walk. I ran home crying.
Wow.
I was chased by trucks. I got in probably 10 or 12 fights where I had to defend myself until that day in March of 95. What happened was, I write about this in my book, me and one of my closest friends, a guy named Laron, who lived in my neighborhood, we saw this large group of white students in the hallway at our school. And it looked like they had just gotten into a fight. And me and Laron, again, there's like a black corner where all the black students come and stand together in between class. And we're standing in this corner and we're looking at these white students who clearly just fought each other. This is what we thought. And he and I comment to each other like, look at these stupid, we called them rednecks, like, look at these stupid rednecks. They had not just fought each other, they were pumping each other up for me. I had no idea. It didn't even occur to me. I was a nerd in band. I played the trumpet in my band class. And I see them, like maybe 30 of them, and you either had to walk around them to get to the band class or walk through them.
Gosh.
I didn't even have a inkling of an idea that they were there for me. I just walked right through them. As I get in, like right into the crowd, I start to hear them say, even then I'm so dumb, I don't know what's going on. I start hearing them say, there he is, there he is. And it's occurring to me at the moment, I think they're talking about me. And as soon as I had that thought, I got hit in the back of the head. And it felt like 20 minutes, it was a minute. I fell down, the entire group just stomps me terribly. And then teachers and some students start literally screaming, and everyone just disperses, and I'm just on the floor, a bloody mess. And that moment changed the entire trajectory of my life. As much as it was an injustice. I had 3 spinal surgeries on my lower back. Even to this day, they damaged my sinuses, and it causes me trouble to this very day. But before that happened, I had no intention on doing anything good in the world. I was a generally good person. I wanted to grow up and leave that town. I hated it. But I wasn't thinking about being a civil rights leader. It never occurred. I wasn't thinking about being a humanitarian. None of those things had ever occurred to me at all, not once. You spend 2 years as a teenage boy recovering from this, and it caused me to think two different things. It caused me to care deeply about people in pain, physical pain, emotional pain, wherever they are. And it caused me to care almost too much about injustice.
Mm-hmm.
And those things were almost forced on me. And I look back at it, and as much as I hate what happened to me on that day, I'm still grateful to Allah that something happened that ultimately moved me in such a different place and space that it sent me down the path that I'm on now.
Alhamdulillah.
And but ultimately, like, even when I talk about it, race in America is mainly used as a tool of power, a tool of oppression. And the ignorance of it is most white people, they don't actually think they're superior. Even most white supremacists don't even have good teeth. It's like most of them don't have a GED.
Yeah.
And if, like, when I see, like, to be white in America often means to get a tan, to get bigger lips, to get a bigger butt. It's like, how I know what superior, listen, and just to bring it all the way back, I was about to do an episode of the Thinking Muslim podcast, and me and my imam, Dr. Shadi Imasari,
mashallah.
Dr. Shadi and I were going on this trip together, and the UK banned Dr. Shadi from entering. We couldn't even make the trip.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, so literally they revoked his visa and banned. And when we saw it, we were like, hold on. You're banning Dr. Shadi? Like, what are you doing here? And like, I would understand me. Like, I'm banned from multiple countries. So we were preparing for the podcast, and one of the questions they were going to talk with me about was about white supremacy in America. It's a scam. Like, we know as Muslims that there was no greater human being to ever walk the earth than the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon us. This was a superior human being. How do superior human beings act? How should they act? If you think you're superior, why are you so afraid? Why are you, like, on my most confident day, and the three of us, we are, if you added all of the three of us up, we don't equal the toe of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. But on my very best, most confident day, it never occurs to me to mistreat someone else. In fact, the more confident I am as a human being, the more I love people, the less I'm offended by them. So suddenly there's this group of people that seems to be so afraid, so offended, that even the presence of certain people seems, they're always afraid. It doesn't matter if it's Trump, if it's Stephen Miller, like these. Do you want me to think like that Stephen Miller and Donald Trump actually think they're superior human beings? Or that Jeffrey Epstein, I'm reading the papers, he keeps speaking of himself like he was a Jewish supremacist. He wasn't using the word Zionist, but all throughout the papers, he speaks about how Jews are literally the best people on the planet. Not religiously. They speak genetically. Over and over and over again. They keep talking about how they are genetically superior. First, you're just Europeans. Like, let's be completely honest about it. You're a Polish and Ukrainian. And not a single honest person on the planet thinks that Jeffrey Epstein is a superior genetic. And in fact, if you look at the Epstein papers, not a single woman in Jeffrey Epstein's life thought he was a genetic specimen. They mocked him behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So I said to say that white supremacy is a lie, And at its root, race is a lie. Nationality is not a lie.
Sure.
Where we're from, genetics are not a lie. But they created race as a color. He is white. He is black. And we have this power. You don't have this power. In Minnesota right now, the United States Supreme Court issued a decision giving ICE officers the legal cover to stop people, interrogate them based on how they look. Now, what they're saying without saying is, if you see anyone who does not look like they are from Europe, now, by the way, Turkey is in Europe. I don't mean Turkey. If you see someone and they don't look like they are from the Netherlands, you have a right to interrogate them. So in Minneapolis, you see them pulling over Uber drivers, pulling over Latinos who are third and fourth generation Americans. But because they don't look like and they're not pulling over immigrants from the Netherlands who might not even be documented, who might have an expired visa. It's all a scam. It's all about power. And when you start to dig, you're like, race, even as a construct, has primarily been used to divide us and used to allow one group of people to have power and everyone else to be deprived of it.
I have a question. So,
Yeah.
when you spoke about the hate that you were getting, for who you were, being black, you became Muslim, but you didn't just become Muslim like a Christian person just took shahada. You studied and became a Christian minister,
Of course, yeah.
and then you became Muslim. And I'm wondering if the hate. I mean, you were a lot older. You probably left Kentucky, but you were a lot more famous at this point. Were you getting hate? Maybe not the same type of hate. And I say this because I just want to preface this.
Yeah.
Because I noticed little things like this. Like my friend, shout out to my friend Lost Lyrics. We do stand up together, and he took a shahada last year. And funny enough, I'm on tour with 3 comedians, and one of them gave shahada, was a witness for the other one to become Muslim. So now all 3 of us are Muslim.
Yeah. If you hang around Muslims enough, you will become a Muslim.
Yeah.
Like after a while, because, not to interrupt you,
Yeah.
and not to insult Christians, but Muslims have daily habits. The average Muslim lives a daily life that the average Christian doesn't. Like the average Christian doesn't pray where you see them praying. And so suddenly when you're traveling with Muslims, you start to see, I mean, I've said this as someone who traveled with Muslims before I became a Muslim. You start to compare your life to their life. And you start to ask, why am I not doing this? Like even in November of 2023, I was with some brothers in the UK. I was the only non-Muslim with them. And on Fridays, they would go to prayer and they would leave me in the car. And I remember the second time they left me in the car, I thought, I'm not doing this anymore. I had already 3 or 4 weeks earlier, I had already told Sheikh Omar Suleiman that I was thinking about becoming a Muslim. I'd even traveled to Dallas and spent time with him to talk about it. And as the brothers were leaving me in the car, I was just thinking, like, I don't belong in the car. And so, like, these brothers that are with you, like, when you spend time around Muslims, it causes you to ask questions that everyday American life don't cause you to ask.
For sure.
And so when I became a Christian because in Kentucky in 1996.
So prior to this, you weren't anything.
No, my mother, and let me tell you something that I've recognized, and this will help the two of you and anyone who sees it. Because my mother was very much, this is not different than many born Muslims. My mother was born into a family that was very passively Christian. They weren't practicing. My mother did not go to church. Her mother didn't go to church. But when they would take a census, they would probably check Christian. I have met Muslims all over the world who live the same way. They were born into a Muslim household. They may or may not even be praying. They think of themselves as Muslims, but they're not practicing in the way that maybe the three of us are. But because I didn't grow up in church and only slightly thought of myself as a Christian growing up, I actually unconsciously, as a kid, I resented this, that a lot of people that I grew up around seemed to have like an anchor in a faith. Now I see the wisdom of Allah in it for me. Because I didn't have these deep roots in Christianity, when I finally came to like truly understand the truth of Islam, I didn't have something that I thought I would be abandoning from my childhood. So like if when I learned, I cried when I first heard this hadith, and I'll just tell it in story form. When Abu Bakr, when his father first embraced Islam, his father was near death. I mean, his father was closer to 100 than he was 60. And by this time, Islam was firmly established in both Mecca and Medina. And when through great effort, they brought his father all the way to the home of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was so happy, like elated that this man who was as close to him as a brother, that his father had embraced Islam. And Abu Bakr begins to cry. And it surprised everyone in the room, including the Prophet, peace be upon him. And he asked him, Abu Bakr, why are you crying? And he just told him, he said, I would trade my father embracing Islam for Abu Talib embracing it. And he said, I know how much you loved him. And he said, I would do anything, including my father switching roles. And it reminded me, because I realized if our own Prophet, peace be upon him, could not through his own power convince Abu Talib to embrace Islam, and then how can you through your own power do it? Or how can I, if the greatest among us could not do so? So for me, Abu Talib, he had these deep roots culturally. Like, he felt like to become a Muslim would be to abandon his people. And it was noble. It was a beautiful, it was that trait that allowed him to defend the Prophet, peace be upon him, for so many years. Well, I didn't have that. Those deep roots that Abu Talib could not disconnect himself from. I just didn't have them. And what I'm noticing is, I would say, as I've traveled as a new Muslim, when I travel, 75% of the reverts I meet were not raised in deeply religious households. And it allowed all of us to more easily pivot than, say, my own wife. Like, my path versus my wife's path, very different. She was born a Christian, raised this way. And by the time I met her, she had 15 years where she spent 3 or 4 days a week in the church. And by the time I met my wife, I had maybe visited a church like 5 times. She had probably been 1,000 times, more than that. And so, like, think of what it would take for you. If I asked you, I've asked audiences this, what would it take for you to become Jewish?
Yeah.
You'd be like, Shaun, if I paid you $10 million, would you embrace Judaism right now? You'd be like, no. It's an impossibility for you.
Yeah.
But there are lots of reasons why that is. It's almost impossible for anyone to pivot to a new religion.
Yeah.
Later on in life.
And later on in life. And I think, had I really been raised as a proper Christian, I probably, it Allah knows best, but it would have been much more
struggle.
difficult,
Yeah.
you know. And
In that story here, when I was on tour with these three brothers, the brother who just took his shahada mentioned it on stage. Now, some of his audience members that come are not Muslim. So when he's like, I just took my shahada, and people naturally clapped. And another girl saw her friend clapping and goes, like swipes her hands down.
Yeah.
Like, don't clap for that.
yeah,
And he noticed. And I know, we all noticed. It
Wow,
got very
wow.
awkward in the room.
yeah.
And just little things like that. I know, like, she didn't
It would
say
have been
nothing.
great for him to be like, hold on.
Yeah.
Did I just see you? You know, like on the
Yeah.
like, because you know, like crowd work is an amazing thing. You know,
Yeah.
it would have been hilarious, but like, hold on,
Yeah.
sister. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but did I just see you slap her hand
Yeah,
right now?
exactly.
And the audience would have loved this, but in
Yeah.
the moment, it's so personal. It's like, hold on,
Yeah.
wow, yeah.
So I'm curious about you, like in terms of like any hate that you might have gotten because you became Muslim. Did you get any? I mean, maybe you got like smaller ones, like losing followers or.
I'll say two things. So I've been closely associated, even publicly, with Muslims for most of my adult life. Like even going back to the late 90s, like most of my life, I've always had people even ask me, are you a Muslim? And after I took my Shahada, there were two things that people would say to me, that Muslims would say. Muslims would say, everywhere I go, I get this. And it's beautiful to me, and it makes me happy.
Can I take a guess?
Yeah, guess.
I thought you were Muslim.
Yeah, let's say the first thing people say to me is they say, I had been praying that you would become a Muslim.
Ah, okay.
And then the second thing that they always say to me is, Shaun, I saw you taking your Shahada, and I was so confused on why this Muslim felt he needed to take his Shahada again. And I've had people say, Shaun, I thought you were a Muslim 10 years ago.
You know what's funny? He knows this, but I used to I grew my hair out, I had a fro, and then I braid it. I remember going to a masjid I haven't really visited. I walked in, and brother was like, Shahada? I was like,
That's very
I was
offensive,
like, hey,
man.
come on, man.
Yeah, it's like,
Let
hold
me
on,
through,
listen.
man.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, my people have been Muslims for 1,000 years, man. Like I go, like, yes, I can literally trace myself all the way back to the Prophet, peace. In the United States,
That, by the way, the comment you just made, that's funny to me because sometimes I'd be seeing like a Nigerian brother do it and an Asian brother. I'm like, you both related to the Prophet? How you both related?
well, you know, in the United States, being a Muslim,
Rochambeau.
I think like African Americans in the United States, who often there are Muslims in Philadelphia, for instance, who go back 5 generations. But they still get this question, like, are you a revert? And it's deeply offensive to them.
Is it?
It's like, you think that, and it's like, hold on, like, I'll tell it to you how I hear it.
Okay.
They will say to me, like, Shaun, my family embraced Islam in the 1940s.
Oh, wow.
And they go back to, like go back deep, and it's to say, Shaun, someone whose family came to America in the 90s sees me, whose family was a Muslim, who were Muslims 50 years before their family even got here. And here, you're like, my great grandfather was a Muslim. And for some studies say that 30 to 45% of African Americans, genealogically, their ancestors are Muslims. And so for a huge chunk of African Americans, there's only a small window in which they weren't Muslims. To have someone immediately assume that they just embraced Islam last week or last month or anything else, it hurts them,
Yeah.
and so they get this regularly, and we feel like Muslim, non-African American Muslims in the United States should appreciate how hard people tilled this ground before they even got here.
100%.
To say before a wave of Muslim immigrants came in the 70s and 80s, African Americans were creating masjids, developing them, and often struggling, like in a place where they were the minority within a minority. And I'm grateful because I see groups and organizations like ICNA and others acknowledge this, to say, we understand we were not the first Muslims here.
100%.
And, you know, there is a pride in, there are entire books now about enslaved Africans that were brought to the United States. Even there's a book now about an Islamic scholar who was enslaved during the transatlantic slave trade. And there's like there are photos and pictures of him, and there's even writings of him writing in Arabic. This man was a scholar of the Ummah and then was forced into slavery. And it's to say, it's like, no, listen. We're all here now. And it's important for me to know your history and for you to know mine. Like the United States, as much as, this country is like an abusive spouse. It wounds us, it hurts us, it mistreats us. And then there are these other redemptive things we love about it. And we keep coming back to it. We don't leave it. We probably should leave this place.
It's funny because
Yeah.
we
Right.
use a different analogy, or so I won't throw you under the bus. This country to me is like a drug dealer daddy. Like,
Yeah.
I hate
No,
that
no,
my
I get
dad is drug dealing and beating up half the neighborhood, but he just bought me a PS5. So like I'm
Yeah.
living,
Right,
I'm
right.
living comfortable here. But like, you know, I'm sorry to the neighbor who
The
didn't pay
problem
back. You know?
is, in this country, if you're not, almost any group can be oppressed in this country. Like, and the problem with that is, when your group is not the currently oppressed group, it can feel comfortable. So suddenly,
Somalis were on a good streak for a minute.
this is and I've had wonderful conversations. I have had Somali friends for 25 years. And in Minnesota, now listen, Minnesota it's not perfect. I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about entire generations of Somali immigrants felt comfortable calling Minneapolis home. And for a long time, the primary pain that they would experience would just be anti-Black racism. Now, all of a sudden, because of YouTube and social media, it's like, oh, people literally hate us because of where we're from now. And the painful truth of that is, it will pivot to you next. It will pivot from Palestinians to Sudanese. It will pivot from Sudanese to Latino. It will pivot from them to poor people. It will pivot from them to African Americans. It's all of us at the same time. But this country tends to hyper focus its oppression on a small group of people and then pivot to somebody else. The weird thing about 2026 is, for the first time in my lifetime, even white people are catching it. And when I say in my lifetime, I compared Alex Preddy, the white man who was shot and killed, and Renee Good. I compared them to 3 civil rights workers who were killed in the American South in the 60s, named Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner. Goodman and Cheney, they were Jewish. And Goodman and Schwerner were Jewish. Cheney was African American. And they were driving in the Deep South, and some racist white men, police pulled their car over and kidnapped them and killed them. It was the single biggest story in the world. They were missing for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they turned up literally like dead in a landfill. both Renee Good and Alex Preddy, these are two, not only are they two white people, they're two visibly white people, and they weren't saying otherwise, but they were they lived there, and they were just fighting for their neighbors, standing up for the people that they loved. And I think they thought, like the people they were fighting for thought they were safe.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Preddy and Renee Good, and just as Goodman and Schwerner thought, we are visibly white.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're in the Deep South, but we're white.
Mm-hmm.
And what they found, what Renee Good found out, and what Alex Preddy found out, is there are limits even to whiteness. That in that moment, and we can get really weird, it was some Latinos that shot Alex Preddy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's like, what is this? The truth, what it is that it's no different than you see a video from the IDF, and you're like, hold on, is that an Ethiopian? You're like, hold on, is that a black man I see in the IDF?
Yeah.
And you realize oppressors are oppressors.
No matter what.
And when you work for the oppressive system, I saw this video, it was super viral in Minneapolis, and it was of an ICE agent telling this white man that he was going to erase him.
Oh, yes, I've seen this.
And it's like, hold on.
If you raise your voice, I'll erase
I'll erase you. Yeah, I'll erase you or something.
Yeah.
And in the comments,
he said it with an accent. I was like, brother, get out of here.
It was like, dude, you're speaking broken English.
Yeah.
And it's I actually felt bad for him. It's like, hold on, man. Do you understand how you look to the world?
Yeah.
And again, it's no different. What it is if you go back, if you study oppression, and my undergraduate and graduate degrees are in history, and when you study oppressive,
I thought you said you had an undergrad in oppression. I was like, what's college?
My degrees are in history, but I very much studied oppression and fighting against it.
Got you. Okay.
And when you study it, you will always find members of the oppressed class who will do anything they can to escape the oppression, including just becoming an oppressor. And so you could go to the plantation in the American South, and Brother Malcolm talked about this. You could find almost all of the oppressors on the plantation were white, but they would literally choose 3 or 4 black men who would basically be their oppressive coworkers. And Brother Malcolm would say it like this: those black men who were used as what we call slave drivers would say, like, the slave master could be sick, and this black man would say, "Are we sick?" And like, "Oh, we?" It's like, "No, you are hired." And I even have sympathy for him. He betrayed his people. The man in that truck betrayed his people. We see it. It was a group of Muslims who murdered Salah. This is, anytime there is severe oppression, it breaks my heart, but to escape it, you will find groups of people from your own group who will sign up to join them in a subconscious way to just escape the oppression. And it doesn't mean we forget. It's unforgivable, but it's also really common.
This is happening in Afghanistan. It's happening in Gaza.
Everywhere there is severe oppression. In Afghanistan, in fact, there was a mass shooter in Washington, D.C. He killed 2 or 3 people, not a mass shooter. But there was a man they arrested who they said was a Muslim who shot 2 or 3 people in Washington, D.C. This brother, he was basically, if you've ever seen the movie Born Identity, this man was from Afghanistan, and for about 15 years, when he was 15 years old, this is fact, this is in the Washington Post, New York Times, The United States military pulled him from his village in Afghanistan and used him as a sniper against his own people. For 15 years, this kid who became a killer in Afghanistan was used to go with hundreds of others, was used to go from village to village to village. And then eventually he was treated as a refugee. This man who had killed hundreds of people was basically dumped by the United States government in Seattle, Washington, given no support, no counseling. People were actually calling the FBI and Justice Department and saying, this man needs help. They made him into a monster, then refused to help him. Then he just drove across the country. He abandoned his whole family, drove across the country and started killing people. It's a story as old as time. It's not limited to non-Muslims or Muslims. It's a story of oppression and what it does to people.
And you see it in the story of Musa alayhi salam.
Yes.
The oppressed people, they leave. Imagine the scene of Fir'aun chasing you, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala having the miracle of the ocean being split. You get across, Allah just saved you through the Prophet Musa alayhi salam, and then those oppressed people who have lived in oppression for that long go back and worship a cow.
Yeah.
When they just witnessed this miracle. But oppression does something to your psyche.
Oh, it does. It's
right?
not.
Your mental. And that's one of the reasons Musa alayhi salam was actually not able to go into Masjid al-Aqsa.
Yeah.
Until the next generation came with a different, stronger belief and aqeedah in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's like you said, a story as old as time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's painful, but it's true.
Brothers, I'm going to propose a 1-minute break, mic check, and switch the segment.
Okay, great. Thanks, brothers.